Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. I'm Chaim ben Pesach, and we have another program with the great David ben Moshe. Well, we're of course going to be talking about Donald Trump's crazy proposal for the United States to take over Gaza and make it part of the United States. I guess he wants Gaza to become the 51st state. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, but it's part of a general problem that we have. And the problem is we have a prime minister of Israel who doesn't know what Jewish destiny is, and we're going to explain the whole situation and how people should look at the latest developments. But before we get to that, this program is dedicated to Refuah Shlema, a complete recovery for Ashedina Bat Violet, Shlomo Ben Sarah, Ruth Bat Sarah, Dorit Bat Sarah, and Ruven Ben Shoshana, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls, for Sharon Mitman, Malka Bat Meir, Allegra Bat Shlomo, Daniel Neinkin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zev Ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Harab Mir Kahana, Rab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, and Yair Levine. Donald Trump proposes that the United States should go in, invade Gaza, and make it part of the United States, basically. He said, we're going to own it. He wants to make it part of the United States. He said he'll turn it into a Riviera. I guess he thinks he can build Mar-a-Lago in Gaza. Crazy plan. And the problem with Donald Trump is he gets something in his head, and he thinks he knows better than everybody, and he has no idea what he's talking about. This is a problem. On the other hand, his proposal to get the Arabs out of Gaza would be very helpful. That's a very helpful proposal. But the other things he's proposing make no sense. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to allow that to happen. The American people would never go for that. The American people would never go for having American troops go to Gaza. It's just not going to occur.
It's a burden that the United States doesn't need, and as you said, the American people won't go for it because they know eventually their soldiers will be shot and blown up.
It's completely crazy, but what's amazingly revealing about all of this is how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's supposed to be representing Israel, immediately accepts the proposal and praises it. What a joke. Gaza is part of Eretz Yisrael. It's part of the land of Israel. Inviting the United States or any other foreign country into the land of Israel is a terrible sin and something God would never accept. This is like the Jews in ancient times who invited ancient Greece and ancient Rome to come and intervene in their civil wars. And when they invited the Greeks and the Romans to come in, invited empires to come in, it eventually led to the destruction of the Jewish homeland and of Jewish sovereignty. Complete insanity. Just complete insanity. But it'll never happen. That's not going to happen. Okay, the United States is not going to go in and occupy Gaza and have American troops there. I hope that there will never be a crazy plan for Gaza's so-called rehabilitation. I don't think Gaza should be rehabilitated. I think it should be cleared out of the Arabs. All the rubble and everything else should be cleared out, and Jews should move in, and Jews should settle. That's the only plan that makes any sense for Gaza, but that's not what Netanyahu proposed. Netanyahu said, "Ze lo reali." That means in Hebrew, it's not realistic to have Jews return to Gaza and settle in Gaza like they did in Gush Katif. That's not realistic, he said. But it's realistic to have the United States go and occupy Gaza and make it the 51st state. That's realistic, according to Netanyahu. Nothing he says makes any sense. It's just insanity. And by the way, for those of you who think that Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich are right-wingers and they're opposition to him, they praised the Trump plan immediately. So, we have a whole situation here where we have leaders who are not leaders, who are a joke. And it's just a miracle that the Jewish people survive with these types of traitors running Israel, and just the insanity of this generation. The Jews were ready to celebrate that the United States is going to come in and take over Gaza. The Jews in Israel were ready to celebrate. Just complete insanity. By the way, can you imagine the anti-Semitism that will cause when American troops would go there and start getting blown up? All the anti-Semites are going to say, "You're getting blown up you're getting blown up for the Jews." I mean, that's what they would say. Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and all these other Nazis. You know what they would say. So that plan is not going to happen. I hope that his proposal will sabotage any attempt to get an agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel, because an agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel will be a catastrophe for Israel. That's another thing that Trump and Netanyahu are dreaming of, an agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel, which will enable the Saudis to develop nuclear bombs. That's what the Saudis really want. They want American and Israeli consent to their building nuclear bombs. That's the real goal there. What should the United States really do? The United States should cut off all foreign aid, including to Israel, because it's not helping Israel, it hurts Israel. All foreign aid should be cut off. That's number one. Number two, the United States should cut off all funding for the United Nations and all these international programs and stop lending hundreds of billions of dollars to third world countries that never repay the loans. They don't even repay the interest on the loans. Forget about the principal. And hundreds of billions of dollars are given in loans to Egypt and Pakistan and all these other countries that never repay. The United States should loan nothing, should give no loans to anyone, and no foreign aid to anyone. None. The United States can have trade with different countries. That's fine as long as it benefits the United States. But no foreign aid, which is not helpful and which is only harmful, and no loans, because the loans are never repaid.
And it's given to countries that hate us.
Right.
So this is insanity. It's not like we're swimming in money. We're 35 trillion in debt. And there doesn't seem to be an end to stopping that debt, to adding on to that debt.
So, number one, an end to foreign aid, an end to loans, an end to funding of all these international organizations. Now, Trump is doing some of this. Some of this he's doing, and I praise him for what he does do. He's cutting off funding to UNRWA and to some of which is a Hamas front group now, the UN organization UNRWA. They worked with Hamas. The UNRWA UN employees joined the Hamas terrorists in the attack on October 7th in Israel. So the United States was funding this, in effect. That's what happens when you fund the UN. There should be no funding for any of these groups. That's the first thing the United States should do. Second thing, not just energy independence, but complete energy dominance of the world. The United States, the United States can become the dominant force in the world, on the world economy. United States has enough oil and enough shale and enough coal and enough resources in other energy fields to become the energy supplier for the entire world. Not only become energy independent, but to become the supplier for the whole world and put Saudi Arabia and Iran and all these filthy Muslim Nazi countries that hate the United States and that hate Israel and that hate and all non-Muslim infidels, put them out of business once and for all. And also put Jew-hating third world countries and America-hating third world countries like Venezuela and Nigeria, put them out of business too. That would also be nice. United States can do all of that. Trump has he signed, as we predicted, by the way, he has signed certain things that are improving the energy situation. It's better than what Biden was doing. Of course, that's why we supported him over Biden, because he is better than Biden. But not enough. By any means, not enough. Got to do much more. Got to unleash all of America's energy potential. America can become an energy giant beyond description. And by the way, Russia will be much less of a threat because Russia's economy is desperately dependent upon their sale of oil and other resources that they and other energy resources that they sell to the Europeans and to other parts of the world. This would put Russia out of business as well, make Russia much less of a threat. And China then, by the way, would be less of a threat because China would be dependent, would be desperately looking for energy, and would eventually have to come to the United States and ask for energy because the United States would be putting all these other countries out of business. All of this should happen and can happen if you just get the federal government out of the way. Get them out of the way. Let the energy producers go in and produce. Now, the big oil companies don't want this because they make more money with foreign countries like Saudi Arabia, with dictators, with foreign dictators. They don't want American energy independence, the big energy companies, the big oil companies. They prefer a situation where they have an energy monopoly and where they could just give bakshish, they could just give what we say in Hebrew, we call it shochad, which means bribery, to the foreign dictator, and the foreign dictator gives them exclusive rights over their energy fields and energy production and energy shipments.
That's because it's one reason it's more profitable to buy from the Middle East is it's a known energy commodity. You know the oil's there. All you got to do is drill it up and then bring it over here for refining. If you start digging all over, you could have wells that just come up empty, and that's unknown. So the thing is, we do have the energy. You just have to know where to drill. And we have well over 500 years of energy between oil and coal, nuclear power, and whatever the sun and the wind can add to it, fine. They're starting to come out with some wind things. They're not these giant blades that kill birds. And we'll see where that goes.
I don't think the issue is that they feel there's uncertainty in drilling in the United States. That's an excuse they use. That's not the issue. They know that it's profitable and that they'll find enough energy resources if they really develop in the United States. That's not the issue. Is that they don't want competition. That's the issue. In Saudi Arabia, there's no competition. Saudi Arabia, you make a deal with the king and or the dictator there, and he gives you monopoly control over everything, and you make a fortune. And you also charge huge amounts of money to the American consumers. The American consumers pay gigantic amounts of money, and America ships trillions, not billions, trillions. A trillion is 1,000 billions, trillions of dollars to these Muslim Nazi countries. That's what the energy companies want. In the United States, if everybody's allowed to drill and you get the government out of the way and everybody's allowed to drill, you know what happens? Thousands of smaller and medium-sized energy companies also want to get in on the action. And so there's competition. And up-and-coming companies start taking some of the business away from the big energy giants. They don't want that. They don't want competition. Anyway, we could do shows on this. That this is the whole reason why you have a new world order, because behind the scenes, they want to eliminate competition. This is why big energy companies are not capitalists. No, they're against capitalism. They are socialists because they want the government to prevent competition. They want monopoly control, and socialism gives them monopoly control. So. Anyway, in the United States, you'd have thousands and thousands of energy producing companies coming up all over the place in Texas, Louisiana, the Gulf. There's a lot of energy. There's energy off the coast of California and Florida where you're not allowed to drill now. But there's plenty of energy there, and it can be done safely, and it can be done effectively and efficiently. There are places like New York, upstate New York, where you have lots of areas where there could be fracking. And a lot of energy can be produced there, and that would save upstate New York, which is being emptied. And upstate New York is like a desert now. You have whole cities that are being emptied, that are being depopulated. Everybody's leaving upstate New York. Buffalo, when I was 40 years ago, When I was running the JDL, Buffalo had 550,000 people. Now they have only 200,000 residents. Everybody's fleeing. Everybody's leaving. So the only way to save that is through massive energy production. That would save the United States. That would give the United States the resources it needs. It would give the United States massive new revenue to take care of the huge budget debt, not just the budget debt, not just the debt you have from government spending. There is massive, very dangerous debt on the corporate level, on personal debt, on people on their credit cards. Most Americans in an emergency, if they needed $1,000 in an emergency, 59, according to one poll that was taken recently, 59% of Americans said they would not be able to come up with $1,000 if they had a $1,000 emergency now. That's how bad Americans are, how bad off they are. Half of Americans who have credit cards are in credit card debt. They can't pay off their credit card debt. Half of Americans are in that situation. We are a nation. The United States is a nation. I shouldn't say we, because Jews really should identify with Israel. But the United States is a nation that is deeply in debt. Personal debt, corporate debt, pension funds. You think your pension funds are very, very deeply in debt. Everything is in debt, and everything is floating now artificially on a stock market that is artificially high, it's a bubble that can burst at any time. Everything is floating on all of that with massive debt. I mean, this is a very dangerous situation. And there are a lot of remedies. One of them is to cut government spending drastically, but it really should be cut drastically, not the little cuts that we see that Elon Musk is proposing. Elon Musk, what he's proposing to do will make very little difference. He's not making major cuts. You need massive cuts in spending. You need a massive increase in stimulus to the U.S. economy. How do you stimulate the U.S. economy? By cutting taxes. And you need a massive energy plan that will make America the energy producer for the whole world. That would give the United States tremendous new amounts of revenue without raising taxes, without government regulations, without all of these other things that cripple the economy. Anyway, that's what should happen. But the only way we're going to have anything straightened out here is if we have Jews in Israel that will finally stand up and tell the truth to America and to the world. That's the only way things can be straightened out. And Israel can be saved by these Jews. And the only Jews that are telling the truth and that stand for the truth and that live by what they say, they're not hypocrites. They put their lives on the line, and their families live there, and they live there in these remote communities in Judea and Samaria. These Jewish pioneers, they're the hope for Israel and for the whole world. They're called the Hilltop Youth. Noar HaGevaot in Hebrew, the Hilltop Youth. They're the hope of the world. We've got to support them. We've got to back them. Their fight is our fight. If you want to help the Hilltop Youth, there are a number of ways you can do it. Number one, leave in your will money for J.T.F. Set aside money in your will for J.T.F. This is something that could be tremendously helpful, and it'll be very helpful to you when you face God on Judgment Day. Leave money in your will for the Hilltop Youth by leaving money to J.T.F. And you would leave it of course, to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F., and our address, of course, is P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. Very, very helpful. Secondly, give us recurring monthly donations. You go to our main website, which is hayamin.org. You click on the donate button. There's a donate button in English on top, and you make recurring monthly donations. This way you're committed to helping the heroic Hilltop Youth on a monthly basis with donations that will be very, very helpful. Be helpful to them, be helpful to the world, be helpful to you as well. Monthly donations, important. And the third thing is if people want to make one-time donations, they can do that as well by going to do hayamin.org if you want to make a one-time donation. All of these things can be done at hayamin.org, which is our Hebrew website, and you click on the donate button. That's if you want to do these things online. To help us through the regular mail, if you don't want to do it online, you send checks and money orders made out to J.T.F., and you send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York, 11365. David?
I was watching interviews with employers and managers of corporations who have to hire and fire. And many corporations now will not hire Generation Z. And you can see why when you look at them in school, where they scream and they try to blot you out if you're saying something they don't like. They have to have safe space. They'll get you kicked off of college campus if you say the wrong thing.
Wait a minute. Define for us Generation Z. What's the age group there?
Oh, I don't know the age group. That's people born, I think, before millennials.
Yeah, it means, in other words, the young generation of today. The young generation of today. Okay.
Well, you could watch them on college campus and see how they're going to act in the corporate world. And manager after manager and employer after employer of smaller companies, owners, have said they're unemployable. They end up being fired after just a few months. And they find this is their problem. They have a lack of communication skills, a lack of interest in their job. They can't get off their cell phones. They're constantly on their cell phone doing private stuff all day long. And 65% of employers have had to fire their Generation Z employees. And they find that 23% of them are burned out, and 48% of them complain there's too much stress. Well, I've seen other videos where a young woman, maybe 24, she's crying because she has no time for herself. She has to get up early in the morning, commute for an hour, then work all day long, a brief lunch, then the rest of the day, and then she has to commute back home for an hour, then make supper. And she said at that point she's so exhausted she just wants to go to sleep and do it all over again the next day. Well, it sounds like what we went through when we used to work years ago, and we knew it was going to be like this. And so you make the most of your job. You try to make it enjoyable one way or another. Even if it's something you don't like doing, there's a way of making it enjoyable and making the time go fast, especially if you're really busy and under a lot of pressure. You can't believe how fast an afternoon goes by. But she's not the only one that cried. I've seen men complain. Men used to be the breadwinners. They knew they had to go to work, and if they owned their own business, they'd work more than 8 hours a day. But not these people. One woman complained that she was in college, and she had classes 3 times a week. And so she had 2 days a week off plus the weekends. She said she doesn't have those 2 days off now, and she can't take it. That's the future of this country. Do you realize how much trouble we're in besides everything else that we've laid out in the past couple of years for you? But this is the future of this country. Meanwhile, in New York City, one of Obama's sons, remember Trayvon Martin, he could have been my son, one of those Obama sons, was stealing from a clothing store. I don't think it was a big clothing store, a small men's clothing shop. The clothing was in stacks, sitting right on the table. And he was just putting them in a shopping bag, and the manager came over and watching him, and she took one of the stacks off the table and put it on a back shelf. After he got everything, he said, "I'll be back later." And he walked out, and that was the video. I don't know if he came back later. But that's how brazen it is, because there's no law. Can you imagine what would have happened to that manager if she pulled a gun out on this man and told him to get out of the store and put everything back down? Can you imagine if she ended up shooting him? Her life would be over. She'd be spending how many years in prison? The thing is, if you're a thief, you're in a very dangerous occupation. If somebody shoots you, well, you should have expected it. And news from Somalia. They finally did something right. Because they're very religious and intolerant. Somalia is really a really bad country when it comes to Islam. 2 men in Somalia gang raped and then murdered a 12-year-old girl. You would think under the Muslim religion that would be acceptable and nothing would happen to them. But they were executed by firing squad, and the squad was chosen by her father, who then went over to inspect all the bodies to make certain they were dead.
That's just government. That's just family vengeance. That in Islam they do have family vengeance, but again, in Islam we know as a fact that rape is acceptable.
Rape of young girls, middle-aged girls, camels,
it's
goats,
acceptable.
sheep, and that's not an exaggeration.
No, it's not an exaggeration. I mean, they do commit rape in Muslim countries. There's no question about that. And we've seen in countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, the rape victim, the women are put on trial. Not the rapists, the women are put on trial. Why did you obviously tempted him. It's your fault.
Maybe she had 3 hairs on the top of her head showing. And hair in Islam is a woman's crowning glory, and it turns men on to where they're uncontrollable. And so that's why they walk around with their heads covered like that. Just in some cases, their face is totally covered too, just slits for the eye. I mean, if I look like a Muslim woman, I'd even cover that up. Oh, this imam was talking about how if a man hasn't had a woman in a while, having sex with goats and sheep is highly acceptable. The only thing is, after that, the goat and the sheep is unclean and must be destroyed.
Probably something he does in the mosque.
And here's somebody who's being deported. I don't know why. He's obviously here to hand out Bibles, but this is what's being deported. This is what Joe Biden and others before him let into this country. Why would you want to deport this? He's obviously a very religious man, and he's here to share his faith with you. Why would anyone do that? Look at the tattoo. Even if you're a crazy lunatic gang member, why would you mark yourself up like that? Would they think that looks good? I've seen women, some of them really gorgeous, and like half their body is covered in tattoos. When we were kids at the freak show of the circus, we used to pay to see the tattooed lady. Now they're walking all around us. And I have I might call it a heartwarming story. I find it practically unbelievable. This is a true story. This woman from Poland is now among the righteous in Yad Vashem. Her name is, she's Polish, I guess a Polish Catholic, Irina Gut. And what she did was just remarkable. Not that she saved a lot of lives, but of course, if you save one life, you've done very well, and that will stay with you forever. That'll give
Talmud,
you
we learn in Judaism, he who saves one life has saved an entire world. If you save one life, it's as if you've saved the entire world, because every life is like a world.
As you pointed out when we used to do our shows out of New York, say you win $1,000 on a slot machine. Well, you feel good for 2-3 days, and then it's forgotten. And then you want to win some more and some more and some more. But you save a life, and that good feeling stays with you always. My wife, Ashadina, saved the life of a little bird. We have finches out here, wild finches, and its leg was stuck in the nest. and the parents are screaming at it to come out of the nest, and the poor little bird, the baby bird, is ready to fly, but his leg is stuck. So Ashadina went out and freed the bird, and he flew up to the branch where his two parents were, and they were chirping, chirping, so happy, and that good feeling stayed with her forever.
And that's a bird. Imagine a human being saving a human being.
Well, Irina got herself a job in this small Polish town. The Polish town had a Wehrmacht major who was in charge. He was the governor of the town, and an SS major who was in charge of security and rounding up Jews. And he was Sturmbannführer, something like that. And he was worried if he doesn't get his quota of Jews, he won't get promoted to Ober is colonel, Sturmbannführer. Yeah, if you know the collars on the SS, 4 dots is a major. And you get a single oak leaf on each collar when you're equivalent to a lieutenant colonel, and 2 oak leaves if you're a full colonel. Well, underneath where the major was staying in a small house, this was a temporary residence till he could get the biggest house in the town, were 12 Jews, and they were, what would you say, seamstresses? What would you call a male sewer? A seamster?
Tailor.
Okay, a tailor. They really weren't. And the Germans were complaining they're too slow. They're not getting these uniforms repaired quick enough. And they all claimed to be tailors. And Irina Gut was like second in command of the house under an older German butler, like a major, you call that a major domo? He was actually a very kind man. He was probably in his late 60s. She went down there and was talking to them, and she wanted to know why the sewing is going so slow. Well, they all claimed to be tailors so that they could stay there, but actually they were accountants, teachers, lawyers, and they all sewed in their life so they could sew. It just wasn't as fast as somebody who does that as a profession. So finally the major, who's in charge of the town, gets the big house, and they find they're about to take the Jews away. So Irina Gut figures this is a giant house. She's going to hide these 12 Jews right under the major's nose in his cellar. And she sneaks them into his new house in his cellar, and they figure because he can hear them snoring through the ventilation, he thinks there's rats in the house. So he says, I hate rats, get rid of the rats. No matter what you do, I don't want to see a single rat here. So she realizes, or one of the Jews realizing, a big house like this, in wartime, there must be some secret rooms. And sure enough, there were a few secret rooms in the basement. So she hides them in the basement, and years are going by, and the war is starting to wind down now. It's just about over for Germany. And so and she sees, when she's at the market, she sees the SS major killing Jewish babies, and she can't stop crying. And the guy who was the major domo, he tells her, whatever you do, because the Wehrmacht major loved to throw parties. He was a party animal. And the SS major was always there. He said, whatever you do, don't go out there crying, because then they're going to start drilling you. What are you crying about? So she composes herself, and it's a giant house, a mansion, and there's enough food so she's able to buy more than is necessary and feed the Jews very well. But as the war's winding down, 2 of the Jewish women are in the kitchen because they figure the major's at work, but he comes home early and sees them. And he starts screaming at Irina, saying, do you realize you just got us both killed? And then she tries to calm him down, and he tells them, go back to where you're hiding. He doesn't turn them over, because it would come out that he was hiding them for the past couple of years. So they go back downstairs, and he said he'll let her get away with it for sexual favors. So the war is just about over now, and everybody's clearing out. and he has to flee, and he tells Irene where to meet him, and of course she doesn't, and she sets the 12 Jews free into the forest, and they all survive the war. She caused those 12 Jews to live under the commanding officer's nose, and you would think she would have been a hero, but the Soviet army listed her as a partisan and a traitor, and they were going to imprison her, but somebody who was a Soviet soldier got her out and set her free. So she was made a righteous person of Yad Vashem for saving those 12 Jews, and the cleverness with which he did it. And she passed away in 2002, so she lived a relatively full life. And the major domo, who I told you was a decent guy, he said to her, "You're hiding Jews downstairs, aren't you?" And she finally admitted it, and he said, "I don't want to know. I don't know anything about it. Don't tell me anymore. Just keep it as quiet as you can." So they're afraid for their lives, but also you can see the things that, I'm not going to give you the whole story. You can see the things he said, that he was a decent guy just doing his job and was forced to do the job he had to do. So every once in a while, you'll find a good person. And of course, there's another Irene in Poland. We told the story of Irene Sendler, who's smuggled over 1,000, close to 2,000 Jewish kids out of the Warsaw Ghetto and saved them. And the thing with Irene Sendler was, in her final years, I think she lived to be 102, her final years were in a nursing home. And one of the nurses was one of the children she saved. Her nurse was one of the children she saved. And I've got two little things. Biologists are predicting, because of Trump and the Republicans back in power, biologists are predicting a reduction in male pregnancies due to a political climate change.
In male pregnancies?
Yeah, in male pregnancies due to a political climate change. And I saw this little video. Cannibals in New Guinea are willing to take 5 of our illegals every week.
In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For J.T.F. until next week, this is Chaim ben Pesach, and for David ben Moshe, Shalom.